Yo, what is up guys, Vincenzo from home of Milan coming back at you once again. Furthermore, today we got a lot to discuss with the second leg versus Rennes in the Europa League, and also our next game in the Europa League versus Slavia Praha, and also the game versus Atalanta in the Serie A, with also previewing the game versus Lazio as well. Make sure you guys check us out on all of our socials at Instagram, Twitter, Bunches, and TikTok, all at home of Milan. So without any further ado guys, let's jump into this. So in the last video, in the preview for this second leg game, I really thought that this was going to be a lot more comfortable, but it was the complete opposite. And I feel like in this game, we saw Milan being way too comfortable, being up 3-0. You can kind of give some leeway, right? But Milan played absolutely terrible. Defensively, we were a mess. However, I do want to tip my hat to Rennes because they played absolutely phenomenal. To my surprise, obviously, in the first leg, I feel like we really controlled them and we really, beat them at their own game. But in this game, I feel like it was the complete opposite. Rennes literally ran us out the park, and I feel like they played phenomenally, but it just wasn't enough to see them go through. And Milan just were not playing at the top level we thought they were going to play, picking out some starters out of the lineup, and Jovic getting a red card in the league granted him a start in this game to give Giroud some rest, but overall just losing individual battles and overall looking sluggish and sloppy. I feel like the only bright spot in this game was Leao's goal. I feel like he did well to defend and obviously get right back up and do what Leao does best, dribble through defenders and put in a nice little goal for himself. And also a special shout out to Theo Hernandez for making a beautiful assist for Luka Jovic. Not really much to talk about since Milan did go through 5-3 on aggregate, and there was so much talk of who our opponents in the Europa League would be. Obviously, we had the chances of getting the likes of Liverpool, Brighton, West Ham, obviously. But our opponents for the round of 16 are Slavia Praha, which is very lucky. I feel like we dodged a silver bullet there. But I think this should be pretty straightforward for Milan. I believe we can go through beating Slavia Praha pretty comfortably. But I think we should learn from our mistakes in this game, not taking a 3-goal lead for granted and not getting too comfortable. But I think we should get the job done versus Slavia Praha. Moving on to the Atalanta game in the Serie A, I feel like this game was a mixed bag for a lot of people, and fans, I feel like in this game were very, very pessimistic going forward. Obviously, in the preview in last video, I predicted a draw. And right off the bat, 3 minutes in, Leao showing glimpses of himself in the MVP winning season, scoring a fabulous goal by nutmegging one of the defenders and beating 2 others, crushing the ball into the top right corner. It was really nice to see Leao getting into form again. Obviously, versus Rennes, he scored a great goal, and obviously in this game, he scored a goal. And this is Leao's first league goal in a very long time. So big up to Rafael Leao for kind of getting himself and being a lot less selfish, which is really great to see. Obviously, we saw him passing so many times into the box rather than shooting, but now I feel like he's kind of getting into that groove where he's just going to take the ball and score, which is great to see. So I feel like the whole half, I feel like we were creating chances and doing very well, in my opinion. However, in the 43rd minute, Atalanta were rewarded a penalty for a high boot, but I don't think that this was enough to be given a penalty. But regardless, Atalanta were rewarded one, and obviously they put it away. In our last 7 games, we've conceded 5 penalties, which is absolutely unacceptable defensively. I feel like there's no discipline in this team. Obviously, we get loads of red cards, the most this season. It's absolutely unacceptable how this team is just very undisciplined. In the second half, I feel like, in my opinion, was a great one from Milan. I feel like we were in control, but I feel like we were wasteful with so many of our chances in front of goal, taking 16 shots, only having 7 on target with an XG of 1.17, which just isn't good enough going forward. Obviously, when you have 7 shots on target, you have to be a lot more clinical in front of goal. But I want to give a special shout out to the midfield with controlling the game. Obviously, we had 68% possession, so that's absolutely massive. And I'm not sure how I really feel like with Reinders kind of being in this team, because even though we know how great Reinders is, obviously Adli is a regista, and obviously we've seen Reinders try to play as a regista, and it just is not as cohesive as this midfield 3 was of Loftus-Cheek, Adli, and Benacer. So I feel like Benacer kind of is like the metronome, and I feel like Reinders is similar to Benacer in those sorts of ways. So if we can kind of rotate them in that sort of way, giving rest and stuff like that to those types of players, then I feel like we can get a nice little midfield rotation within those three. So going forward, I don't know. I kind of like the midfield this game. I feel like, I mean, the stats don't lie. We controlled the game. I think going forward, I feel like Reinders will slot back into the midfield once his penalty is up, which he should be back versus the game versus Lazio, I'm sure. With a couple more half chances in the last couple minutes, I thought we could see out the victory, but I think we did all that we could against the Atalanta team, who was in some great form and who have some great players like Cope Miners, obviously, who scored his penalty today. De Ketelaere's been on some decent form, and obviously Pasalic is a main protagonist in this Atalanta team as well. But let's move on to tops and flops. I feel like for me, top, I'm going to say Leao. This was one of Leao's best performances of the season. I feel like he scored a fantastic goal. He was a threat going forward, despite being double, even triple teamed at times. I feel like Leao did absolutely phenomenally this game. So hopefully he can carry on this great form into the game versus Lazio and other games to go forward. And flop, despite him having a great game versus Monza, I'm going to say Pulisic. I feel like he was wasteful of his chances, not really getting into dangerous areas like we've seen him in recent games. So unfortunately, he's going to be my flop, and Leao is going to be my top. In our next game versus Serie A, we play Lazio away from home, and Lazio currently sit in 7th place. In their last 5 games, they've had 1 draw, 2 wins, and 2 losses, compared to our 2 draws, 2 wins, and 1 loss. And obviously in our last 4 games versus Lazio, we've won 3 and lost 1. However, that 1 loss was in Rome, and that game ended 4-0. So it was an absolute thrashing from us. But I think going forward, I feel like we could win against Lazio, just because I feel like they're a little bit inconsistent, and defensively, I just feel like they're not as strong as they were last season. Obviously, having the best defense in the league, getting 2nd place, and now they sit in 7th. So I feel like going forward, I feel like we can win this game, and I think we will win this game quite comfortably, actually, just because Lazio are not the same beast that they were last season. So I feel like for that reason, I feel like we will get the win. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you guys think about the game versus Atalanta and the draw in the Europa League versus Slavia Praha. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao ragazzi.